Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. The big event occurred one night while we were on a trip to the Oregon coast. We'd not intended to spend the night, but decided to do so at the last minute. The only motel available was an older establishment with horrible, soft, old mattresses. According to what I can tell, about halfway through the night, while curled up against the wall, I slipped off the mattress and became wedged between the wall and the mattress. I then had an apnea attack, which left me unable to move or breathe, and I went into cardiac failure. This is all conjecture, supported only by a mild abnormality in my EKG over the years since. Whether or not I coded is not at the heart of the problem or my experience. There are numerous debates around the world about what really happens when you die by both medical and theological theorists. I can only speak of my own experiences. Even as I write this, it sounds like science fiction, but I can assure you that it happened and that I believe it to be true in every way. Without trying to be overly dramatic, the following events were what I've discovered to be a classic near-death experience in subsequent studies. I didn't see myself in bed, like many people who report floating over their bodies, because the room was too dark. But I was blasted through an amazing tunnel of brightness that brought me ever closer to an unbelievably bright light. I arrived in a place that was so overwhelmingly bright and swimming with fluid colors of the entire spectrum that I did not realize I was not in my physical body for what seemed like minutes. Regular time does not seem to apply. While I could see, or had a sense of seeing, I couldn't see my hands. My experience was significantly different than others I'd read about around this time. I realized what was going on and was not pleased. Almost immediately, I began screaming in a voice I could hear in my head, but not physically hear. "No way," I exclaimed. "No, I'm not done yet. I still have young kids. I haven't seen the end of my life yet. No way." I kept on verbally abusing anyone who was listening in very profane language until I heard another voice say, "Okay, relax. This is not your time." At that moment, I knew two very clear truths to be true. First and foremost, I was not going to die or stay dead if I was. Second, there was a God and an afterlife beyond our mortal existence. Then things started to get strange, interesting, and terrifying. Unlike other NDEs I've read about, I didn't see or sense the presence of Jesus, Buddha, or Allah. I also didn't see any of my relatives who had died before me, although I had the impression they were here with me. What I did see was a much brighter place, perhaps 30 to 50 feet away. I had no clear understanding of depth ratio. It seemed to pull at my heart, if I had one, to come closer. When I looked in the direction of this portal, I was overcome with a sense of complete peace, calm, and contentment. But I knew that entering the portal would almost certainly mean that I would be unable to return to my life on Earth. Without speaking, but understanding what was said to me, a conversation ensued that changed my life. "You're troubled," said the voice. "Your desire to know the truth about your life is preventing you from living it fully." I agreed without saying anything. "You must understand the gift in order to enjoy the treasure, the gift that has been given to you," said the voice. While the voice was neither clearly male nor female, I realized that makes no sense. I know the communication was coming from all that is, all that was, all that shall ever be. The voice was what I assumed to be God's. Even as I was thinking of this, it was clear that the entity was aware of what I was thinking and chastised me for doubting or attempting to figure out its very existence. In order to understand what you believe, you need to understand to be happy. You must first understand what you need to change in your life on earth, the voice said. In an instant, I was looking back on my life, first recalling all of the wonderful feelings that had brought me joy. I witnessed all of my life's incredible events when love, the most powerful positive force in existence, was most present in my life. Childhood memories, my first true loves, my children's births, the first time I realized I loved my wife more than I loved myself. Everything associated with love in my life flashed before my eyes, filling my heart with a joy that felt almost overwhelming in its scope. Then there was the other side of my life. To my surprise, I was not subjected to all of the lying and deceit that I would have expected from my youth, nor was I subjected to all of the sexual trysts and dalliances that I would have expected from my college days. What was presented to me was described as the times when I'd hurt others to such an extent that they doubted their self-worth or ability to love and be loved. Girls I slammed and disrespected in college, people who admired me only to be disrespected, or worse, ignored when they extended a hand in friendship. People I couldn't recall or knew who had been harmed by my cutting sarcasm and smart-ass wit. Worst of all, I had made hurtful comments and actions toward people I cared about and loved. Callous remarks or actions that seemed insignificant at the time. With each new revelation, my heart ached, knowing that my actions, which seemed trite and insignificant at the time, had influenced the outcome of so many lives. It became clear to me right away that the healing power of unconditional love and respect could be so easily undermined by a single act of deception or abuse of trust. Once you've crossed a line, you can never get it back. All you can do is ask for forgiveness and move on because the changes are permanent. The act of contrition, forgiveness, heals the soul. I knew this because I was not shown the acts I'd expected to see. I hadn't been shown the memories of the heinous acts I was aware of. Even in my most repentant youth, they required me to seek forgiveness from a higher power. The acts that were thrust in front of me appeared insignificant and trivial. My cocky, self-assured attitude dismissed thoughtless acts of impulse as not that big a deal. They'll get over it. But even with this primary evidence in front of me, the only question that remained clearly in my head was, why? What exactly does it all mean? What is the point of it all? And it was here, my friends, that I made a mistake that nearly cost me my life. After hearing the question, do you really need to know the answers to enjoy your life on earth? I responded, yes. The next thing I knew, I was being blasted with a force of knowledge so powerful and overwhelming that the biblical phrase, God smote them, became completely relevant. I was confronted with all of the answers in a burst of light and cognition. The answers to life, death, science, and theology, as well as all of the amazing complexities of the interaction between what is, what was, and what always will be. I felt an overwhelming sense of wonder, but it was overshadowed by a sense of terror and an inability to comprehend even the most minute detail of this creation. And I was filled with such incredible inadequacy that it reduced everything I'd previously thought, felt, or believed to a single point of nothingness. The air screamed from my lungs the next instant, and I awoke terrified in the darkness, doubting anything had happened. Yet my brain was suddenly full of more innate knowledge than I could ever truly comprehend, each fragment of knowledge with its own life, seeking to rectify itself with the larger questions of scientific existence and theology. My wife awoke and inquired as to what was wrong. Terrified to speak of what I just witnessed, and even more terrified of the reality that I'd just died. I never doubted it from the moment I breathed life again. I chose not to bother her right away, as long as my heart seemed to beat and I felt no physical effects or heart attack symptoms. To this day, I realized that this was not only dangerous, but also created a schism in our love for one another. It was simply the right thing to do at the time. In retrospect, I wish I'd woken her up, told her what had happened, and attempted to help her understand. Even now, she appears to resent the fact that I kept the experience hidden for a few months while I worked through what had happened to me. I knew several things the moment I returned from my little trip to the other side, as I affectionately call it. First and foremost, it was true. It occurred. I knew this because of the flood of information coursing through my mind. Facts about subjects I'd never studied or even had a passing interest in, such as physics, quantum mechanics, and the balance of positive and negative energy, and the correlation between good and bad, digital information in the world. Furthermore, societal conflicts between innate knowledge of what is right and mankind's equally innate need to quantify his life with organizational structure of what cannot be quantified, all in a semi-cognitive blast. Second, my life would not be complete until I could make sense of everything. Third, the existence of the questions was a complete confirmation of both my experience and the existence of something beyond this life. Then I messed up. I began a quest that would last nearly 2 years, consumed by the need to fit all of the pieces together. I read everything I could get my hands on, from Paul Davies' time and space theories to C.S. Lewis's wonderful books that combine theology and the fundamentals of relativity into a concept that is both science and God's word. The more I read and studied, the more I realized that humanity is only scratching the surface of creation's understanding. More importantly, not only was every theory and concept ever devised to comprehend the big question entirely wrong, but they were also entirely right, just a small piece of the ultimate answer. I was almost completely without any other purpose for nearly 2 years. While I understood the importance of being a husband and father, my quest to understand why kept me from fulfilling those roles. Instead, I attempted to make connections. Every single dot. I was convinced that if I just connected the dots, everything would make sense and I would be able to enjoy and cherish my life. If only. Consider connecting every grain of sand in the ocean or every visible star in the universe. This is what my search for ultimate knowledge entailed. The information I was able to collect made perfect sense, and the big picture became clear. Everything on Earth is made up of the same subatomic particles, all connected to the same energy that is the cognitive knowledge of everything. And these particles can change depending on the energy that makes up everything. Everything exists in a constant state of flux and balance between the light and the dark, good and evil, positive and negative, on and off, even being reduced to a kind of digital code of zeros and ones. The matter that we don't see is just as important as the matter that we do see in this delicate illusion. On and on and on, until I thought I'd go insane trying to understand the gift I'd been given. It was killing me from the inside, muddying up the clear, cool waters of life in such a way that everything I did became insignificant and meaningless. Then a child came to my rescue. My daughters, 11, 9, and 7 at the time, asked me if I would take them to the park one bright and sunny Saturday morning while I was sitting and reading a book about the relationship between time, space, and religion. I snapped at them, telling them I was busy and needed to get things done. Before I could respond, they said, "It's okay. We still love you. We'll be waiting for you." I'm sure it was half joke, half taunt, their way of letting me know that the matter was not closed and that they would eventually wait me out until I relented. My heart melted as I looked at their smiling little faces, filled with genuine love and understanding for the gruff, impatient man in front of them. At that moment, their simple display of love for me washed away any confusion or doubt about my place in the world. My heart was so full of emotion and love at that moment that every cosmic lock turned, and I finally understood the real answer to life. The answers to everything were right in front of me, embodied in a child's faith, love, and hope. I remembered the wonder of their births, each life the moment before, living in a liquid environment like all early life forms in the sea, then finally entering our world and gasping for their first breath of life here on Earth. How their lives were conceived by the life force of their mother and I uniting in creation's most wonderful gift, the act of procreation. Sex, the big O, whatever you choose to call it. How every part of who they are is made up of the parts of millions before them, allowing them to be the one and only creature who shares their gift with you, making your gift of life all the more valid and fulfilling. I realized the folly of my quest for the answers with the force of a moment that stops time like birth, death, and the overwhelming realization of true love for another being. I realized that the simple phrase, with the faith of a child, contained the answer to everything good, everything that truly mattered: truth, happiness, love, and honesty. I simply put the quest in a box for the next 13 years while we raised our children, built a business, and got on with life. However, scientific reports, bits and pieces of new discoveries in quantum mechanics, dark matter, the field as McTaggart refers to it, and other revelations began to percolate with an innate knowledge of what was correct and what was not. Several close friends and relatives have battled and died from cancer or accidents in the last year and a half, and because of my experience, I found myself wanting to comfort the bereaved. It was as if the box was anticipating my arrival in some strange way. And since December of 2010, I've been spinning back into feelings, emotions, and knowledge that run through every particle of my being. I can't put the box back on the shelf now that I've seen I Am, read McTaggart's books, and watched several episodes of Through the Wormhole dealing with life after death, creation, time and space, and the Creator. So, the NDE experience lives on for me